Good day everyone, Sir Janus here and welcome to another episode of Einsteinatics TV. Today, we are going to put focus the digestive system which is covered by Quarter 4 Module 1 of Science 8. So are you ready to learn? So here are our learning objectives for today's topic. We are going to try to explain ingestion, absorption, assimilation, and exertion. Specifically, ito yung ating mga objectives for today's lesson. Una, we are going to try to discuss the importance of digestion. Bakit nga ba mahalaga yung digestion? We are going to try to identify and describe ano yung mga roles of the different organs involving the digestive system. And last is, we are going to try to explain yung apat na stages of digestion.
Before we proceed, let us have quick reminders. So feel free to pause the video anytime to soak up the concepts. You can also pause the video, especially when answering the assessments or quizzes. Pwede kang gumamit ng separate papers for your answers. And you may also download the module provided by the link on the video description. And of course, the most important, don't forget to subscribe so that you will be updated with new content.
Before proceeding, let us try first to answer this question. Why do we need food? Bakit nga ba kailangan nating kumain? Now, as humans, we need to consume a balanced diet which contains a variety of different types of food. Because from this food, we can gain the following nutrients. Yung una, as we all know, from your previous topics, from the food that we eat, we can gain carbohydrates, which is used for energy. Yung proteins naman, ginagamit ng ating katawan for growth and repair. Yung fats to store energy. And yung vitamins and minerals to keep the body healthy. Now, the amount of each food type is needed is related to the proportions as what is shown on the food pyramid. Now, based on the food pyramid, anong klase ba ng pagkain the body need the most of? So, as you can see, the largest portion here is the carbohydrates, which is needed by our body for energy. You might be wondering, ano nga ba yung mga carbohydrates? Pag sinabing carbohydrates, it refers to starchy foods which contain carbohydrates which are made up of long chains of identical small sugar molecules. So, ito yung illustration of a carbohydrate molecule. So, yung body natin or yung katawan breaks down long chains of carbohydrates into small sugar molecules so that it can be absorbed by our body. Now, from these small sugar molecules, it will be used by the body to release energy and make the body work. Another nutrient that we can gain from the food that we eat are proteins. So, ano nga ba yung proteins? So, yung proteins, kagaya ng carbohydrates, are made up of long chains of small molecules. In proteins, however, the small molecules are not identical. So, as we all know kanina, based on our previous discussion, that proteins ay ginagamit ng ating katawan for growth and repair. Another nutrient that we can gain from the food that we eat are fats. So, ano nga ba yung fats? So, yung mga fats or taba are made up of fat molecules which contains fatty acids and glycerol. Now, yung mga fat molecules can be broken down by the body so that they can be used for energy storage. So, yung fats are also used by the body to keep heat in to make cell membrane. Now that we already know the different nutrients that we can gain from the food, our body now needs to solve two problems. So, yung una, paano nga ba natin makukuha yung energy coming from the food? Now, yung problem 1 is how to release smaller sugars. As we all know, yung physical means like slicing and cleaving, pati na rin yung chewing or pagmuya ng pagkain, do not break down the long chain molecules and release the sugars. This is because we can't release sugars from carbohydrates by physically breaking them up. So, ano nga ba yung reason? Bakit hindi natin basta-basta makukuha yung energy by physical means or pagmuya ng pagkain or pagdurog ng pagkain? It is because the chain of sugars from the food that we eat is held together by chemical bonds. And as we all know, based from your previous topics, that chemical bonds need also require a chemical technique if they are to be broken. Another problem that our body needs to solve in order for it to gain the energy from the food is the problem with food size. As we all know, that the food starts with large in size. So being large, yung food tends to be unable to dissolve, and we say it is large and insoluble, or ibig sabihin hindi siya basta-basta natutunaw. So bakit nga ba kailangang mabilis matunaw yung pagkain? So yung food needs to be soluble so that it can dissolve in the blood and thus be transported around the body. And mas maliit yung pagkain, then the more likely they will dissolve or madali siyang matunaw or be digested. So the digestive system has to cope up with both these problems. So from the food that we are eating, through the process of digestion, it will turn a soluble product so that it can be absorbed or be distributed throughout the body through the blood vessels. Solving the two problems is now the job or trabaho na ngayon ng digestive system. So ano nga ba yung digestive system? So when we talk about digestive system, so these are made up of group of organs all working together, and each organ has a particular function, and only by working together will get the job. So you might be wondering, ano nga ba yung mangyayari na ngayon sa pagkain once it enters our body? So yung madaling answer is that it will now be digested. Ano nga ba yung ibig sabihin ng digested? So when we talk about digested, this means it is broken down. Yung digestion happens in two ways. Yung una, yung tinatawag na physical or mechanical. Yung ikalawa naman is chemical. So, bakit nga ba nangangailangan itong two actions, yung physical at saka mechanical? Kasi, from our previous discussion, as we all know, food has a physical shape. So, ibig sabihin, malalaki siya. So, kailangan siyang i-broken down into smaller pieces. So, that is the job for the physical digestion. And of course, since these food are made up of chemicals or held by chemical bonds, so it must undergo chemical digestion. Can you still remember what is digestion? So when we talk about digestion, the body carries out digestion of food to convert large insoluble food molecules into smaller soluble ones. So itong mga carbohydrate molecule, protein molecule, fat molecule will now be processed so that it can pass through the walls of the small intestine. And these small food molecules can do this when dissolved in the bloodstream. So, why do you think this is important? Bakit kailangan siyang i-convert into small food molecules? So, of course, the smaller it is, the more soluble it is, and it can be readily absorbed by the blood vessels, and these nutrients now can be readily distributed throughout the body. It is important to note the difference between chemical and physical digestion. Remember that our digestive system uses both chemical digestion and physical digestion. So ano nga ba yung pagkakaiba ng dalawa? Yung una, food that we eat undergoes physical digestion so that the shape of the food must be physically changed so that it could fit through the small diameter of the digestive system. On the other hand naman, yung pagkain must undergo chemical digestion because it would now allow useful chemicals to be released and dissolved in the blood, and the chains that held the nutrients can be broken down chemically, and the bonds must be broken so that the energy can be released from the food. This time, let us take a close look as to how the digestion of food happens. So, open wide. It is important to note na yung lahat ng pagkain enters our digestive system through the mouth, and yung mga waste materials naman leaves through the anus. To put into perspective, actually, yung ating digestive system is para lang siyang sobrang haba na tube, which is 9 meters. So yung ating digestive system is also known as digestive tract or yung gastrointestinal tract or GI tract. So which contains the liver, pancreas, and gallbladder, which are all parts of the digestive system. So you might be wondering, since yung digestive system natin has approximately yung length niya is 9 meters, you might be wondering paano nga ba ito na fit or na kasya doon sa ating body. So as you all know, that it is extremely folded, and in addition, yung tube na to passes through the organs on its route from the mouth through the anus. So that is why kahit 9 meters yung haba niya, but as you can see, it is extremely folded. This time, let us explore the different organs of the digestive system and their functions. The first process of digestion takes place in your mouth. Now, sa bibig pa lang, in your mouth, physical and chemical digestion takes place. Yung physical, of course, habang inunguya mo yan, yung food is broken down into smaller pieces. Yung chemical digestion naman, it is because gumagamit yung katawan natin ng saliva para mas mabilis na matunaw yung pagkain. Now, when you swallow, as you can see, a small flap of tissue called the epiglottis folds over so that yung pagkain is diretso dito sa ating esophagus at hindi pumunta dito sa ating trachea, which is meant for air passage. From the mouth, once you begin swallowing, yung process na ngayon is automatic. So kahit hindi mo na gawin or without thinking about it, your brain now would send signals to the esophagus and peristalsis would now begin. Now yung esophagus connects or a muscular tube which connects from the pharynx to the stomach. Now yung purpose of the esophagus is to deliver from the food from your mouth to the stomach. Ano nga ba yung ibig sabihin ng peristalsis? As we all know, yung peristalsis is an automatic movement which is a series of wave-like muscle contractions that move food through the digestive system. So yung movement nito begins in the pharynx or in the esophagus, and once a food bolus is formed and ends up in the anus. Now, along with segmentation or mixing of food, peristalsis is an essential part of providing the body with nutrients. Now, from the esophagus, the food that you have consumed would end up in your stomach. Now, ano nga ba yung stomach? So, yung stomach is a sac-like organ with strong muscular walls. So, inside the stomach, it is considered to be both a mixer and a grinder, wherein physical and chemical change happens, or physical or chemical digestion happens. In terms of physical digestion, as you can see, the stomach churns the food that we eat. And in terms naman of chemical digestion, yung stomach secretes acid and powerful enzymes that continue the process of breaking down the food. Now, once it leaves the stomach, the food is the consistency of a liquid or a paste kasi natunaw na siya ng mga acids. It is important to remember the two processes that happens in the stomach. Yung una is that the chemical breakdown of food begins, and also in the stomach, this is where microbes are destroyed. Now, after passing through the stomach, yung food na ngayon would enter the small intestine where digestion is completed, and the small digested food molecules are absorbed in the bloodstream. Now, let us take a closer look on the process of absorption of the nutrients from the food in the small intestine. Yung small intestine is made up of three segments, yung duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. So yung small intestine is a long tube with loosely coiled in the abdomen, which is approximately 20 feet long. So, ganun kahaba. So, the small intestine continues the process of breaking down food by using enzymes released by the pancreas and bile from the liver. Once inside the small intestine, the process of digestion is aided by the accessory organ. And one of this is the release of bile. Ano nga ba yung bile? So when we talk about bile, it is a compound that aids in the digestion of fat and eliminates waste products from the blood. One of the accessory organ of the digestive system is known as the pancreas. So ano nga ba yung function ng pancreas? So yung pancreas releases enzymes which helps break down fat, proteins, and carbohydrates from the food that we eat. The accessory organ of the digestive system is known as the liver. So yung liver is meron siyang dalawang main function. So yung una is it produces or secretes bile. As we all know, yung bile kanina is ginagamit sa pag-digest or pag-tunaw ng mga fats from the food that we eat. And another function of the liver is it helps to cleanse and purify the blood coming from the small intestine containing the nutrients just absorbed. The last accessory organ of the digestive system is known as the gallbladder. So kung kanina yung liver yung nagpo-produce ng bile, kung saan naman nakastore yung bile, yun naman yung function or that is now known as the gallbladder. So when we talk about the gallbladder, it is a pear-shaped reservoir under the liver, and now its function is to store bile. Now, bile is made in the liver, and this one, during meal, the gallbladder contracts and sending the bile to the small intestine. After passing through the small intestine, the food that you have now consumed will now pass through the large intestine, or also known as the colon. The functions of the colon includes the absorption of water, manufacturing of vitamins, producing mucus, and of course, forms and expels feces. Now, it is important to note that it takes about 36 hours for stool to get through the colon. It is important to remember that in the large intestine, the blood reabsorbs yung excess water that is mixed with the waste food para magamit pa ng ating katawan. After passing through the large intestine, what's left of the food that you have consumed is now passed through the rectum. Now, yung rectum is the lower end of your large intestine, and this is where the stool is stored. Now, it is the rectum's job to receive the stool from the colon and to let you know there is a stool to be ingested. And it also holds the stool until ingestion happens. And finally, the anus is the last part of the digestive tract. Now, this is the external opening from the rectum wherein the feces are expelled. So let's just have a quick view on the process of digestion. It enters the mouth, passes through the esophagus, ends up in the stomach, and from the stomach to the small intestine, then through the colon, through the rectum, and eventually would end up in the anus. This time, let us take a closer look on the four processes of digestion. Ang pinakaunang process ng digestion ay tinatawag na ingestion. So, once you eat a food, once kumain ka ng pagkain, and the intake into the alimentary canal or the GI tract, so the process starts in the food when you chew with the help of your teeth. So, yung paglagay ng pagkain sa bibig or sa bunganga is already the process of ingestion. Now, in the process of ingestion, it is important to remember na the physical as well as chemical digestion takes place. Remember, sa bunganga pa lang or sa mouth, yung physical digestion happens when you chew or pag inunguya mo yung pagkain, and as well as yung chemical digestion because it already produces your salivary glands. Yung saliva or yung laway is a digestive juice which helps in moistening the food so that it can help move through the esophagus. As well as yung saliva also contains an enzyme that helps begin to break down starches in your food. In ingestion, after you swallow, peristalsis, which we all know is an automatic process, pushes the food down your esophagus into your stomach. The glands in your stomach lining make the stomach acid and enzymes that break down food. Muscles of your stomach mix the food with these digestive juices. The second step of the process of digestion is known as absorption. After breaking complex food substances into smaller soluble food substances, it moves down into the small intestine where absorption happens. The small intestine, as we all know, has many folds, and on these folds, there are many finger-like projections called villi. So later on, we will know what would be now the purpose of these villi. With the many folds on the small intestine, which is covered by the finger-like projections known as villi. So yung folding na to means the surface area of the lining of the small intestine is enormous. So dito, mangyayari yung absorption of nutrients. So yung increase ng number of places where small soluble food molecules can pass across and move into the blood. So ibig sabihin, the nutrients coming from the food would be efficiently absorbed through the process of absorption in the small intestine. The next step in the process of digestion is known as assimilation. So after absorption, now comes the part of assimilation. So ano nga ba yung assimilation? So when we talk about assimilation, ito yung process wherein yung digestive food absorbed by the walls of the intestines are carried to the different organs of the body through blood vessels. So this would now build complex substances such as proteins that is required by our body. So yung mga nutrients would be now delivered to the specific organs that needs the nutrients. In the process of assimilation, it is important to note that when food is digested, its components enter the blood. So yung carbohydrates now had been turned into glucose, yung fat naman into fatty acids and glycerol, tapos yung proteins naman is turned into a soluble form which is amino acids. So yung molecules used for growth and repair become part of the body. Yung iba naman are used as energy sources and some are lost as carbon dioxide and water. Yung iba't ibang klase ng nutrients are incorporated into each part of a cell. So for example, yung nucleus, dyan ilalagay yung protein. You have also yung cytoplasm which is made up of protein and water. And also yung mga membrane naman needs fats and carbohydrates. The fourth step in the digestive process is known as egestion. Ano nga ba yung egestion? So when we talk about egestion, ito yung proseso wherein it involves the removal or pagtanggal ng mga hindi natunaw na mga food products from the body. As we all know, ito yung mga hindi natunaw or hindi na-absorb na mga food products is kailangan siyang i-discharge because this contains toxic substances which are left over from the digestion. Kaya nga kailangan ilabas ng ating katawan as dumi. And the last part of the digestive process, just like egestion, is known as excretion. Kaya nga egestion and excretion. So excretion naman, in the other hand, involves yung removal of waste from the cells of organism. So ano nga ba yung mga metabolic waste na tinutukoy? So ito yung included yung carbon dioxide na hindi naman kinakailangan ng ating katawan, which, by the way, is essential siya dun sa mga plants. So as you can see, plants give us oxygen, and in return, we use the oxygen and we release carbon dioxide, which is essential naman for the growth of plants. So give and take relationship lang sila. This time, let us check how much you've learned from today's video. For the first challenge, known as Activity 1, What Comes Next? So what you will do is you are just going to write the following steps of digestion in proper order. So you may use the numbers 1 to 10 to show the correct order, 1 being the first and 10 being the last step. So while you are answering, you may pause the video and you just hit play when you are done to check whether you got the correct answer. So good luck. So here are the correct responses. Did you get it all correct? If so, then you are now ready for the next challenge. The next challenge is tracking food through my digestive system. So, what you will do is you are going to try to label the parts of the digestive system given below. And as well as you are going to give the function of each part. So are you ready to take on the challenge? So just like the first one, you may pause the video while answering and you can just press play to check your answer. So good luck. So here are the correct answers. So 1 is of course the mouth. Number 2 is the esophagus. 3 is liver. 4 is stomach. 5 is gallbladder. 6 is pancreas. 7 is small intestine. 8 is large intestine. 9 is rectum. And last one is anus. And for the last challenge, which is titled, What is it? So what you will do is you are going to try to identify the process or the stages where the following take place. So you are going to write your answer in the space provided. So you are going to choose between the steps of the digestive process: ingestion, assimilation, absorption, egestion, and excretion. So good luck. So ito yung mga correct responses. So yung number 1 is assimilation, 2 is ingestion, 3 is of course egestion, 4 is absorption, and number 5 is excretion. So tama ba lahat ng sagot mo? So congratulations!
So that's it for today's video. I hope you have learned and have fun. Don't forget to click like, ring the bell, and subscribe in order for you to updated with upcoming videos. Einsteinatics out!